The Heart Threat: Hiding in Your Kitchen, a Health Awareness Script by Dr. Michael Kent. There is one food sitting in almost every American kitchen right now, quietly destroying your heart more than cholesterol ever could. And the most alarming part? Your doctor probably looked you in the eye and told you it was perfectly fine, maybe even called it healthy. For 50 years, medicine pointed the finger at fat, at cholesterol, at red meat. And while everyone was looking the wrong way, this other food was silently inflaming arteries, stiffening blood vessels, and triggering heart attacks in people who were genuinely trying to do everything right. If you are over 60, what I am about to share could be the most important thing you hear all year. The damage is not coming. It is happening right now, and most people have absolutely no idea. Stay with me until the very end, because the number one food I am going to reveal is backed by research so alarming that one major study found it increases your risk of a fatal cardiac event by over 40%, even when your cholesterol levels look completely normal on paper, over 40%. And the food responsible is something most seniors consume every single day. I am Dr. Michael Kent, a physician specializing in senior cardiovascular health with over 15 years of clinical experience. I have sat across from thousands of patients over 60 who did everything their doctors told them. They took their statins, they avoided butter, they counted every gram of fat, and they still ended up in my office, or worse, in the emergency room. What I am about to share goes against the story that has dominated medicine for half a century. But I have watched it play out with my own patients, year after year, and I am no longer willing to stay silent. If this already sounds like something you need to hear, share it right now with someone you love, because what comes next could genuinely change the course of their health. Let us start with what is actually happening inside your body after 60. Your arterial walls naturally lose elasticity. Your inflammatory response becomes harder to regulate. Your heart is working harder than it did at 40 just to do the same job. This is normal aging. But here is the problem. There is a category of food that exploits every single one of those vulnerabilities. It does not merely raise cholesterol, it triggers systemic inflammation throughout your entire body. It damages the endothelium, the thin inner lining of your arteries that prevents dangerous clots from forming. It spikes blood sugar in ways that accelerate arterial stiffening. And it does all of this quietly, without obvious symptoms, sometimes for years. The full picture has only come into focus recently as researchers began connecting inflammation, insulin resistance, and heart disease in ways that completely reframe what the real threat actually is. Here is what concerns me most. The food I am talking about is not extreme. It is not fast food consumed daily or alcohol in excess. It is something marketed as convenient, affordable, and in many cases actively promoted as heart healthy. That is precisely why it is so dangerous for people over 60. I am going to walk you through the 10 most damaging forms of this food category, ranked from concerning to critical, so you know exactly what to look for in your own kitchen. Let us count down. Number 10. Flavored yogurt marketed as low-fat. This one surprises almost everyone. Yogurt has carried a health halo for 30 years. Walk through any grocery store and you will see it positioned right in the health section with labels promoting probiotics, calcium, and gut benefits. And plain, unsweetened yogurt genuinely can be beneficial, but flavored low-fat yogurt is an entirely different product. When manufacturers remove fat, they replace the lost flavor with sugar, sometimes a great deal of it. A single 6-ounce container of popular flavored yogurt can contain 15, 17, even 20 grams of added sugar. That is more than 2 chocolate chip cookies. For seniors specifically, that sugar spike hits the bloodstream fast. Your pancreas releases insulin to manage it. Over time, repeated insulin spikes accelerate glycation, a process where sugar molecules attach to proteins in your arterial walls and make them stiff and brittle. A study published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology found that diets high in added sugar were associated with a significantly increased risk of cardiovascular mortality, independent of total calorie intake. Independent, meaning it was not about how much you ate, it was specifically about the sugar. For anyone over 60 whose arterial flexibility is already declining naturally, this distinction matters enormously. If you enjoy yogurt, switch to plain Greek yogurt with no added sugar, add fresh berries yourself. You get the probiotics, the protein, and none of the hidden damage. Number 9, whole grain bread and crackers with added sugars and seed oils. The whole grain label is one of the most misleading in the entire food industry. Whole grain sounds protective. And technically, grains eaten in their most natural and minimally processed form do contain fiber and useful nutrients. But most commercially produced whole grain bread and crackers are not that. They are made with refined grain flour, then reconstituted and enriched with added sugar, high fructose corn syrup in some cases, and industrial seed oils, soybean oil, canola oil, sunflower oil. Here is why seed oils matter for your heart specifically. These oils are extremely high in omega-6 fatty acids. When the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 in your body gets out of balance, and in most American seniors it is dramatically out of balance, chronic inflammation increases. Inflammation is now understood to be one of the primary drivers of atherosclerosis, the buildup of plaque inside your arteries. The bread sitting in your kitchen right now may be contributing to that imbalance every single day. Number 8. Diet sodas and artificially sweetened beverages. I want to be very direct here because this one shocks people. The danger of regular soda is well known, but diet sodas, zero sugar, artificial sweeteners, were supposed to be the safe alternative. For decades, cardiologists told patients, if you want something sweet, go diet. The research of the past 10 years has seriously undermined that advice. A study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association, following over 80,000 postmenopausal women across 12 years, found that those who consumed 2 or more artificially sweetened drinks per day had a 40% higher risk of heart disease and a 23% higher risk of stroke compared to those who rarely consumed them. The researchers found this held even after controlling for body weight, diabetes, and physical activity levels. Artificial sweeteners, aspartame, sucralose, saccharin, are not neutral. They appear to disrupt gut microbiome function, alter insulin signaling, and directly affect blood vessel performance in ways science is only beginning to fully understand. Number 7. Breakfast cereals, including brand-based varieties. I want to tell you about Patricia, a 71-year-old retired school teacher from Chicago. She came to my office after 3 consecutive annual checkups showing elevated inflammatory markers. Her cholesterol was well controlled on a statin she had been taking for 8 years, but her C-reactive protein, a blood marker of systemic inflammation, was consistently high. Her fasting blood sugar was creeping upward toward pre-diabetic levels. She was baffled. She told me she ate a perfect breakfast every single morning, bran cereal with skim milk and a glass of orange juice. She had been doing this for 20 years. I asked her to bring the cereal box to her next visit. When I reviewed the nutrition label, a single cup of that cereal contained 12 grams of sugar and 41 grams of total carbohydrates. Combined with the orange juice, her breakfast was delivering over 60 grams of sugar and refined carbohydrates within 30 minutes of waking up every morning for 2 decades. We switched her to eggs, avocado, and a small serving of berries. No cereal, no juice. Within 8 weeks, her C-reactive protein had dropped significantly. Within 3 months, her fasting blood sugar had returned to a completely normal range. She told me, "Doctor, I cannot believe I was doing damage with the breakfast I thought was protecting me." That was the hardest thing to tell her. Not that she had done something reckless, but that she had genuinely been trying to be healthy, and the food industry had failed her. Number 6. Microwave popcorn and processed snack foods with trans fat replacements. Most people know the FDA banned partially hydrogenated oils, the main source of artificial trans fats, in 2018. That was a genuine public health victory. Trans fats were devastating for the cardiovascular system, raising bad cholesterol while simultaneously lowering the protective kind. But here is what most people do not know. When manufacturers removed trans fats, they replaced them primarily with highly refined palm oil and intraesterified fats, chemically modified fats created by rearranging fatty acid chains to achieve the desired texture and shelf life. Early research suggests intraesterified fats may carry some of the same cardiovascular risks as trans fats, specifically raising blood glucose and suppressing HDL cholesterol. For seniors over 60 whose HDL is already naturally declining, anything that further reduces it deserves serious attention. These products transitioned quietly, with no change in labeling requirements. You would have no way of knowing. Number 5. Fruit juice, including fresh squeezed and 100% natural varieties. This may be the most counterintuitive item on the entire list. Fruit juice has been a fixture of the American healthy breakfast for generations. How could it possibly cause harm? Here is the mechanism. When you eat a whole piece of fruit, the fiber inside slows the absorption of natural sugars significantly. Your blood sugar rises gradually. Your insulin response is measured and appropriate. But when you drink fruit juice, even freshly squeezed, the fiber is gone. You are consuming a concentrated dose of fructose and glucose with no buffer whatsoever. An 8-ounce glass of orange juice delivers approximately 26 grams of sugar with almost no fiber. Your blood sugar spikes. Your insulin spikes. This cycle, repeated daily, accelerates insulin resistance, which is now understood to be one of the most powerful drivers of cardiovascular disease in older adults. A landmark study published in The Lancet, following over 50,000 adults across many years, found that each additional daily serving of fruit juice was associated with a measurable increase in type 2 diabetes risk and separately with markers of increased cardiovascular risk. Whole fruit consumption showed no such association. The fruit itself was not the problem. Removing the fiber was the problem. Number 4. Flavored oatmeal packets and instant oats with added sugar. Plain oats are genuinely one of the best foods for cardiovascular health in older adults. The research on this is strong and consistent. Beta-glucan, the soluble fiber in oats, has been shown in multiple clinical trials to reduce LDL cholesterol and support healthy blood pressure. But flavored instant oatmeal packets are a fundamentally different food. A single packet can contain 15 to 20 grams of added sugar, and the oat structure itself is processed in a way that dramatically increases how quickly carbohydrates are absorbed, producing a blood sugar spike nearly as sharp as eating candy, then a crash. For seniors over 60, that crash matters beyond just feeling tired. Reactive hypoglycemia after a high-sugar meal triggers a cascade of stress hormones, including cortisol and adrenaline, that directly strain the cardiovascular system. Repeated exposure to these cortisol spikes has been linked to hypertension, arterial inflammation, and increased cardiac event risk in aging adults. If you want the genuine cardiovascular benefits of oats, use steel-cut or old-fashioned rolled oats with nothing added, then flavor them yourself with cinnamon, which has its own blood sugar stabilizing properties, and a handful of walnuts for omega-3 support. Number 3. Margarine and vegetable spread alternatives to butter. I want to tell you about James, a 78-year-old retired engineer from Boston, one of the most disciplined patients I have ever seen. He exercised 3 times a week, kept a food journal, and had switched from butter to margarine in the early 1990s when his first cardiologist told him it was the heart-healthy choice. For nearly 30 years, he used margarine on everything. When he came to see me 3 years ago, he had already experienced one silent myocardial infarction detected on a routine EKG. His cholesterol numbers were reasonable, but his inflammatory markers were consistently elevated and his arterial imaging showed significant stiffening for his age. When I reviewed his diet in detail, the margarine was one of the first things I flagged. Even modern margarines that are technically trans fat-free often contain highly processed seed oils and emulsifiers like mono and diglycerides, which can still carry small amounts of trans fats under current labeling rules. Products are permitted to display 0 trans fat on the label if they contain less than half a gram per serving, but if you use margarine 3 times a day, that accumulates. I transitioned James to a modest amount of high-quality butter from grass-fed cows, which is rich in vitamin K2, a nutrient now understood to be important for keeping calcium in bones and out of arterial walls. I also introduced extra virgin olive oil as his primary cooking fat. 6 months later, his inflammatory markers had improved meaningfully. He told me, "Doctor, I spent 30 years thinking I was doing the right thing. I wish someone had told me sooner." I will tell you what I told him. You are not broken. The information you were given was broken, and it is never too late. Number 2, low-fat processed foods and reduced-fat snack products. This category deserves particular attention because it is so deeply embedded in how seniors were taught to eat beginning in the 1980s. The low-fat dietary guidelines that dominated American medicine for decades were built on a fundamental misunderstanding of how dietary fat actually affects cardiovascular risk. When food companies reformulated their products to be low-fat, they needed to preserve palatability. The solution was almost always identical. Replace the fat with sugar, with refined starch, or with both. Low-fat cookies, reduced-fat crackers, fat-free salad dressings, low-fat frozen meals. Every single one of these products compensated for the removal of fat by dramatically increasing their sugar and refined carbohydrate content. And while saturated fat's relationship with cardiovascular risk is still being debated in the research community, sugar and refined carbohydrates have a far more direct and clearly documented pathway to cardiovascular damage. They drive inflammation, they accelerate glycation of arterial tissue, they dysregulate insulin, they raise triglycerides. A comprehensive meta-analysis published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, reviewing data from over 300,000 adults, found that dietary sugar intake, not dietary fat intake, was the stronger independent predictor of cardiovascular mortality across populations. 300,000 adults. The enemy was never fat. The enemy was the highly processed, high-sugar replacements the food industry gave us instead. And now, number one. The single food category causing more cardiac damage in American seniors than anything else. Ultra-processed convenience meals, frozen entrees, and packaged meal replacements marketed specifically to seniors. I feel most strongly about this category because it is the most deliberately cynical. Food companies have identified the senior market with precision. They know that older adults often live alone, may have limited mobility, are frequently on fixed incomes, and have been told by their doctors to watch sodium, fat, or calories. They have built an entire product category specifically designed to appeal to those concerns, while loading their products with the precise ingredients that most damage the aging cardiovascular system. Frozen diet meals for seniors, meal replacement shakes marketed for older adults, shelf-stable packaged foods positioned as easy nutrition. Let me tell you what is actually inside them. Refined grain fillers, corn syrup solids, maltodextrin, a refined carbohydrate with a glycemic index higher than table sugar, sodium in quantities that directly raise blood pressure, industrial seed oils, artificial flavors and preservatives, carrageenan and other additives linked to gut inflammation. A study published in the British Medical Journal, one of the largest ever conducted on ultra-processed food consumption, followed over 100,000 adults and found that every 10% increase in the proportion of ultra-processed foods in the diet was associated with a 12% increase in cardiovascular disease risk. And critically, this association held even after controlling for nutritional factors like sugar, fat, and sodium, suggesting that something about ultra-processed foods beyond their individual ingredients is damaging to the cardiovascular system. I remember Linda, a 74-year-old retired nurse from Atlanta. She came to me after her cardiologist told her she was on the edge of needing a second stent procedure. She was terrified, and she was doing everything her medical team had instructed. She was eating frozen diet meals because they had calorie counts on the packaging. She was drinking a senior nutrition shake every morning. She told me she was eating healthier than she had in her entire life. When I examined what she was actually consuming, the picture was completely different. Her daily diet was dominated by maltodextrin, corn syrup, refined grains, and industrial oils, all packaged in boxes and bottles with words like heart healthy, low fat, and physician recommended on the label. We rebuilt her diet from the ground up. Real food, eggs, fish, olive oil, leafy greens, berries, nuts. Nothing that needed more than 3 or 4 ingredients, nothing that claimed to be healthy on the packaging. Within 12 weeks, her cardiologist called me directly to ask what we had changed. Her inflammatory markers had dropped substantially. Her arterial imaging at follow-up showed measurably less progression of existing plaque. She called me herself and said, "Doctor, I feel better than I have in 10 years. I am not afraid anymore." That was not a miracle. That was her body, at 74 years old, finally receiving what it had needed for years. Now I want to give you something concrete. Here is exactly how to begin tomorrow. First thing in the morning, before anything else, read the label of everything in your kitchen that comes in a box, a bag, or a bottle. Look for 4 things: added sugar in any form, including corn syrup, maltodextrin, dextrose, or any ingredient ending in ose, industrial seed oils, soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, more than 5 ingredients on the label, particularly ones you cannot pronounce, and any product carrying a health claim on the front of the package, because food that genuinely supports health rarely needs to advertise that fact. Within 3 days of eliminating the highest sugar, most heavily processed items from your diet, most people notice a meaningful improvement in energy and a reduction in afternoon fatigue. Within a week, many report better sleep and less morning stiffness. Within 2 weeks, blood pressure often begins to improve as sodium load and inflammatory food intake decreases. Within a month, your next blood test will likely show measurable changes in inflammatory markers, triglycerides, and fasting blood sugar. Your doctor may be surprised. You will not be. A few critical mistakes to avoid as you begin. Do not try to change everything at once. Identify the highest impact item in your home, whichever product contains the most added sugar, and remove that one first. Do not replace processed food with diet versions of processed food. Low-fat, sugar-free, and light versions of unhealthy foods are almost always worse than the originals. Do not confuse calorie counts with food quality. The most damaging foods for your heart are not necessarily the highest in calories. A low-calorie frozen meal can cause far more cardiovascular damage than a higher-calorie meal built from real whole food. And do not feel shame about what you have been eating. You are following the guidance of an industry and a medical system that for decades prioritized cholesterol management over metabolic health. The information is changing. You are changing with it today. Remember this, you are not broken. The dietary advice you received was broken. Your body, even after 60, even after 70, even after 80, retains a remarkable capacity for recovery when it is given the right raw materials. Inflammation is reversible. Insulin sensitivity can be restored. Arterial function can improve. You do not have to accept your current trajectory as permanent. This is not simply aging. This is a correctable problem. Here is my challenge to you. Commit to eliminating just one ultra-processed food from your daily routine for the next 30 days. Just one. Pay attention to your energy, your sleep, your blood pressure if you monitor it at home. Your cardiovascular system will respond. Your heart will thank you. We covered a great deal of ground today. 10 specific food categories, from flavored yogurt and whole grain bread with seed oils to diet sodas, sugary cereals, fruit juice, flavored oatmeal, margarine, low-fat processed products, and the ultra-processed convenience meals quietly dominating so many senior homes right now. Each carries its own cardiovascular risk. Together, they create a dietary pattern that is silently driving heart attacks in people who genuinely believe they are doing everything right. If this reached you today, do not keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who drinks diet soda, someone who starts every morning with flavored oatmeal thinking it is a healthy choice, someone who has been eating frozen diet meals and wondering why they still do not feel well. A single conversation started by sharing this could genuinely change the direction of their health. Which item on this list surprised you most? Which one is sitting in your kitchen right now? I want to hear from you. Because remember, aging does not take away your body's ability to recover. It simply reminds you to care for it the right way.